Hello and welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful back in the studio. Happy to finally be finishing up some projects. So if you're just joining me for the first time, welcome. I hope if you enjoy this video, you'll give me a thumbs up and click on subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos. This series that I'm working on in today's video is a series of French journals, French style journals. And the series has been going on for quite some time because I decided to do some slow stitched spine covers on my handmade journals. And that's kind of at the stage that I'm at now. If you have been watching these from the beginning, I started with one journal and I really liked how it turned out. This was my slow stitch spine cover. And this one is the largest of the ones that I'm working on. And I actually am working on actually doing things inside the journal, and then I'll sell it, I think. So that's kind of where that one is. I haven't worked on it in a while, but once I'm finished putting together the outsides of these, I think I'll get back to working on the insides. So the next thing that I did was to start two more with spine covers. They're a little smaller and actually different size from each other. And for all of these, all three of these, I used a printed fabric that I printed from some of my digitals. So that's kind of the base of these as far as the slow stitch goes. So if I didn't mention it already, you'll find in the description a playlist to all of the video starting from the very beginning. I think this is number 19 or 20. So they are taking a long time because the project keeps growing and growing to these multiple journals. So today though, I wanted to do a flip through of where I am on this smallest one and then show you what's happening next. I did have someone who requested this journal, and I don't really know at what point she wants it. My intention was to, on a couple of these, just kind of sell them as naked journals where I have the pages inside, but no decoration or cards or any of that. So that was kind of my intention. So we'll see if that's how she wants it. But in yesterday's video, I glued on the slow stitch spine cover that I had made. And I've gone through videos on all the different steps that I did to create this one. And then I glued it down, and I did off camera go back and add more glue with my fine line applicator just to get everything stuck down, and same with all of this. So I did that yesterday. So it's all nice and dry and finished. So that is my cover. The cover itself also is one of my digitals. I actually scanned the cover of an actual old book and then put that fabric onto just some recycled cardboard to make my cover. So I went ahead also and did a closure. I showed that yesterday as well, where I just used eyelets to capture some silk ribbon. And this silk ribbon actually was just made from actual silk fabric scrap, and then I just tore it. So it's not a purchased ribbon, it's just from silk fabric. And then I used a little vintage button, and I decided I would put it where you could pull it off if you want. I did add a little bit of glue, but you know, if you're trying to put it in a bookcase or something, that's going to stick out. But I kind of like having it on the front. So hopefully the next person that gets it will still like that there, but it probably can be removed. So I just really, this ribbon was coming out the front, and then I just ran it through the hole of the button and then pulled it back through the inside. I did add a little bit of glue, like I said, just so it kind of is staying there. So even though it's kind of loose, it's attached, because I kind of like sometimes to wrap it around like this kind of a thing instead of tying it, or you could tie a bow. I've left these really long so that depending on how thick this gets and how the owner wants to do it, they might want to bring it around here and tie it. I don't know. So I've left it really long. Okay, and then on the insides, again, this was one of my printed inside book covers. And then these are just a mix of papers, both from my digitals and some other digitals that I purchased. And again, down in the description, you'll find a list of all of the digitals, both mine and the others that I purchased. So I'm just going to kind of go through. Let me get maybe a little bit closer so you can see. Some of the pages are darker in color, you know, more busy. And then I usually have what I call a B side that's maybe faded, has a, you know, pattern back there, but it's more subtle, so you can just write over it or decorate over it or whatever. So I'm just going to kind of flip through these. Some vintage, actually from an actual book, French book. And a lot of the papers, if they weren't from my digitals, and sometimes even if they are, I've used tea stain paper to print them on. So you get that little bit of grunginess and staining and that sort of thing. So that is the first signature. This one has 3 signatures. Make a little pocket there. Some little shorter things. So that's the second signature. And then some more paper. Okay, so that's it. So this one is going to be available in my Etsy shop unless Honey decides to go ahead and take that. So let me pull back out here. Okay, so that one is, I'm calling Finished, a Finished Naked Journal. Now, I had someone, I mentioned this yesterday, give me the idea that instead of putting my lady here, and I'll show you how I finished her up, which I really still kind of like that too. That instead of doing this, that I go ahead and I put her just on the front of a book. So I didn't want her on the front of this one because this is a nice cover. So I think instead what I'm going to do is make a new spine cover for this one, and I already have an idea about it to do it in the same style, but a little bit different, just so that I can continue doing videos and not doing exactly what I have been doing. So I'm going to set that aside and work on this one. So I did find a book that fit this cover nicely, pretty nice. I liked the color with it. I went ahead and finished her, and I'll show you real quick what I have done. So I do have several videos, you know, showing the progress of this one. But I've finished up this garland on her one arm. And then I also did a little garland on this arm. And then, let's see if I can get my lighting here a little bit better. And then I did go ahead and I had put the glass beads here. So I did go ahead and put them where they looked like they were coming down further, all the way down to here. So I've added the glass beads, so it does still look like a chandelier then. And then I had already put a cross stitch here and here. I guess I kind of liked the sparkly, if you can kind of see how it's sparkling, idea that it is a chandelier. And once I had put all this flower work here, I decided it would be too much maybe to have all of that up here. So I went ahead and I just used my least favorite metallic thread, and where all the little, what would be glass tassels, I just did a little straight stitch on those, really kind of messy, where all the little glass tassels, just so you can kind of get that chandelier idea. And then I did go ahead just to add some color. I took some blue and I just did kind of a back stitch through the cross stitch, just to kind of make it not be just brown to give it another color, since I decided not to do the whole garland kind of thing there. And then I did just one little vine with little knot flowers and some leaves on this top row that I had not done the cross stitch. So I like that because it added a little bit of flower without making this too heavy. I wanted to kind of keep it in the background with this layer more forward, and I was afraid if I put too many flowers and things here, it would bring the chandelier too far forward, and I didn't want that. So it looks more finished now. And then the other thing that I did add a couple of leaves here because I thought those flowers, even though they were on her dress, I wanted them to have some leaves. And then I wanted to put something, you know, in this background a little bit, because really I just, other than her and the chandelier and these flowers, there wasn't anything except for my little patches as far as interest. And I really kind of wanted something to stay in the background, but kind of fill that space a little bit. So I really just took a similar color thread and just did some little arrow kind of, you know, feather looking stitch here. And then I did the same thing here, if you can see that. And then I did it again here, so I had it in a third spot. So it's really subtle. I wanted it to stay in the background, but kind of fill those little void spaces. So I think I have achieved what I wanted as far as keeping her in the front and then having this maybe in the next layer and then still having a layer behind that. So that was my goal, and I'm really happy with how she turned out. So on my cover, it is a little bit fragile, so I wanted to show you what I was going to do to kind of reinforce it a little bit and get her put on the front. So I do have like a little bit of a cut here even, so I'm trying to kind of be careful with it. I did clean up and peel off what was already loose, and then I did go ahead and glue down these parts that were already kind of loose. And I do want to reinforce this a little bit because I removed the kind of cardboard paper that was there. So I'm going to add my little curved piece in here, and it's trimmed. If you can see, it's trimmed more the height of this inside paper, so a little short than the top and the bottom, which will kind of keep this fragile still, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm going to glue this down, and then rather than glue anything here where it's really fragile yet, I'm going to utilize that when I put in my my book pages. So if you look at how this is constructed, there is this flat piece of cardboard, and it's just, you know, recycled from something. I'll do the same thing, and then you sew in your signatures to that piece. You lay that whole thing down, and I've done this in all of these, in this series, I've done this multiple times already. You lay that down, and it has this piece has some fabric glued to the front before you stitch these in, and you leave some little wings out, and that gets glued down. So it's going to be kind of, I'm sharing this in case you haven't been watching these videos, but I'm going to use this, I think. I'm going to have a piece cut larger, about like this, and then I'm going to glue it to my flat piece, not this one, but I'll make a flat piece of, maybe I'll do it while I'm on camera here so that you can see what I'm talking about. So let's put that aside for now. Let me glue this down, and I'll just go ahead and do it, even though I've done it many times before. So I can use either art glitter glue or where is my, this is my neutral pH Linico, I guess is how you say it. I'll put, there's a link down below for this too. This is just a archival PVA, and I'll just put this on here and kind of get going. Okay, so that's just going to reinforce the back part of my spine. So I'll let that dry. And then I also want to cut something flat. Let's see. Okay, I'm just going to use some of this, a scrap of this. to make this spine. So I need it to be, this will be what this part here. So I want it to be kind of the same width. So we're going to call that 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches by, let's see, maybe not quite 8 inches. Let's see, 7 7/8. So 1.5 inches by 7 7/8. So I'm going to go cut this with my guillotine. Okay, so this will be my piece that I attach all of my signatures to. So what I want to do then is add this piece of fabric to the front that way. Okay, I didn't find it printed on the scrim, but I did find it printed onto fabric. So what I'll do is just cut this the right size, and then I'll be gluing that on, and then that will get glued to the inside of my cover like this. And then I could either replace these papers, or I might just leave them mold because I kind of like them, and I'll do a kind of a torn edge. So I'll do that when I get my signatures together, but we'll set that aside. So I can go ahead though and put her on the front. So what I did was I just took some lace that I had tea stained because I had this orange line I wasn't wild about, and she looked kind of like she was just floating there with no border, which may be okay, but I kind of like, if you've watched on the other ones, I kind of like to put a little border picture frame. So I went ahead and kind of filled that space, and you still see the orange line, which is fine, but it's just more subtle. And then I think what I'll do is after she's glued on, I will go ahead and, this is some of the same lace, and just maybe add on top, because I can control where it goes better than sewing it, I think, and just glue it down again like that, and then she'll be framed. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's see, point of no return here. I probably won't do this on camera. I'm going to have to let her dry before I put this lace on the edge, I think. So I'm just going to glue this down and then put some books on it for a while, and maybe go and try to pull together all the all of the pages I want for the inside of this, and maybe find some kind of vintage button or something to use for closure. So I'll maybe do this. I want to get a nice coat on this. And if you don't have, you know, the PV or the archival, you can just use PVA glue. That'll work. Okay, I'll just clean it off here. And I'm just kind of eyeballing. Where's my... This is helpful in some ways, but you know, because of all the beads and things, I really need to just use my hand also. But it kind of helps try to smooth out any wrinkles. Hopefully that's... always have this edge that's not quite straight, so I think adding my lace afterwards will help me to kind of make that feel like it's straight at the end. So I guess I could go ahead and put this down too. Okay, I think rather than miter these, I'm going to just cut them. Instead of folding them like I did, it gets kind of bulky in the corner. Okay. So I think once that dries, I think that's going to be fine. It's perfectly imperfect, but it gave her a nice little frame border, so she kind of looks more finished. And then I can still, you know, punch a hole here with an eyelet or something and do a tie. The other thing I could do is, if I don't want to punch a hole here, I could just attach something from the inside, glue it, and then put a paper over this if you wanted to do it that way. But I think I'm going to punch the hole and do all that because I'm thinking I might like to just leave this. It's old paper that it is, because it's in good shape, and it has a nice patina on it already. So I think I'd like to leave that and just have my pattern fabric kind of hanging out here a little. I may decide just to use this. Maybe I'll do this over this, like do this, just cover that just so it has, you know, you're not really going to see this too much once the signatures are in, but just cover that. And then maybe this even goes over it so that it's even more subtle, because I do kind of like just having this color next to this. So I may do that, layer it that way. Okay, so let's see. I need this to dry really well, I think, before. And I need to get my signatures together anyway. So I'm going to put this aside for now and go start digging through some of my papers. And then I'll maybe come back on camera and show you how I put those together for this book. So now I have 4. So I also need to now make a new spine cover for this one. And let me see if I can find the fabric. I had a fabric in mind already. And so instead of using a printed fabric and embroidering on a printed fabric like I did on these, I'm thinking I'm going to take a fabric that I like and maybe just do some patches from the printed fabrics. So I'm going to see if I can find that. And then I'll go ahead and end this video, I think, and go do some digging and then come back and we'll work on it again later. So have a great rest of your day and go make something. Bye.